There we are. Okay, so we are streaming live on YouTube now, and we'll start class in just a moment. Let me just check the streaming and make sure it is in fact going. Y'all bear with me, and then we'll have a few announcements. All right. Okay, so we are streaming live, and the volume is on. Okay, great. Okay, so welcome everybody. Can everyone hear me? Thumbs up if you can hear me.
Loud and clear.
Excellent. So if there is a problem, which, it's technology, so inevitably there is going to be a problem, just type it in the chat box. Like if you're having a hard time, doing some functions or anything like that, just type it in the chat box. And if you are streaming on YouTube, you can type in using the chat box on YouTube as well. You can type in questions, you can type in comments, and throughout the program, Heyman will be leading the program, but we will pause and have time for questions and comments as well. So I just want to introduce myself because I think I see some new folks on here tonight. And I am Linda Sa, so I'm the program assistant for Discovering Buddhism. So if you have any questions or anything like that, you can contact me. And I just want to quickly lead you through some Zoom processes just to make your Zoom experience a little bit easier, hopefully, as we go through class. So first of all, once Heyman starts teaching, I'll spotlight him, so he will be the main speaker that we will see. So once he starts sharing his screen, and you won't see that right now, but once he does start sharing his screen with his PowerPoint, typically across the top or somewhere, maybe across the top, and sometimes it's at the bottom, you'll see something like Heyman is sharing his screen, and next to that is view options. And there's a little drop down arrow, and you can click on that and choose side by side mode. And that way you will see Heyman's shared screen, as well as a little picture of him off to the side. And if you want to adjust that screen, you just go right along the side of his shared screen, and there's a little bar. You can move that left or right if you want him larger, the screen share smaller, what have you. Typically during classes, we do some meditation. If during meditation you want to turn your video off, that's perfectly fine. Some people prefer to have their video off during meditation. We do ask that you remain muted throughout the program, and I will mute myself as well once Heyman starts. And that's just to, if we have dogs barking or doorbells ringing and our kids asking questions, anything like that, we just won't be disrupted, and we'll continue to be able to hear Heyman. Let's see here. The other thing I wanted to mention is that this is module 12 of 13 modules for this 2-year Discovering Buddhism course. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, don't worry. It will be kind of a heavy topic on emptiness, but I recommend just hanging in there, getting as much out of it as you possibly can. There's something for everyone, no matter what level you happen to be at in your studies. This is a 6-session class, so we'll start tonight and go through October 19th on Monday evenings from 7 till about 8:30, depending on how long Heyman would like to go and how much information he has. Wisdom of Emptiness does have a lot of information to share. And let's see, as far as Zoom etiquette goes, another thing, if you want to, certainly we all are dealing with the virtual world right now. If you want to eat your dinner, I would recommend also turning off your video for that, just so it's not a distraction. And again, you can chat to me in either of the chat boxes, whether you're streaming on YouTube or here on Zoom with us. All right, and let's see here. For the Kadampa Center website, I do want to share my screen for a moment and walk you through where you can find all of the readings and all of the course materials. So give me a second to bring that up, and then we'll get started, I promise. Let's see here. All right, not that one. Here we go. Okay, so can you see my shared screen? You should be seeing the Kadampa Center's website. Okay, excellent. Thank you for the thumbs up. All right, so to walk you through where to find things, here's the Kadampa Center's homepage. That would be kadampa-center.org. And if you come here to spiritual programs, you do see this little drop-down menu. And from that, you can scroll a little bit down to beginner programs. And then over there to the right, Discovering Buddhism and Discovering Buddhism materials come up. This is one way you can access this information. So I'm going to hit Discovering Buddhism material. And that will take me to this next page. And I'm just going to scroll down a little bit. All right, and here's all the Discovering Buddhism materials. And these are all of the modules listed out here. And we're way down here at Wisdom of Emptiness. And you see there's readings, and you can actually click right on that, and that will take you to the online readings, which look like this. There it is, Discovering Buddhism at Home. And then from there, you can go back to the Discovering Buddhism materials. If you scroll down a little further, keep going, and then you see this area that says 2019-2021 documents and links. And you see Wisdom of Emptiness is right here at the top. So this is where I will post all other information that we have for this course. And the very first thing I've posted is Discovering Buddhism, Module 12, Wisdom of Emptiness, about this module with completion card. There's also the homework. I haven't posted anything yet, but maybe I will tonight. We'll see if there's any homework that's given. So I'm going to go ahead and click on About this module, because this is typically a handout for in-person classes, but obviously it's being posted virtually here or online. So I'm going to click on that and just kind of go through this very quickly with you, and then I promise we'll get started. My computer is being very slow. There we go. Okay, so we've got About Discovering Buddhism, Module 12, Wisdom of Emptiness. There's just a quick paragraph about it up there at the top. And then we have the classes, the readings, the books, all listed here. Again, there's that same link where I just showed you that you can also access in that other way that I just showed. Some other recommended and optional books, Hemant will talk about those. Integration practices are if you are working towards a certificate with the FPMT, and I'm going to let Hemant tell you about that because I think he's going to give you a bit of a background. So the FPMT, if you're working again towards a certificate with them, you'll need to also do these integration practices. If not, just keep going on down here. This shows you where you can find your resources on the Kadampa Center website, as well as the FPMT website, okay? And to enroll in this module, that should say not module 9, that should say module 12. There's a little typo there, but this Wisdom 03 is the correct key that you would need to enroll for that program. You can keep going. There's some other information. Here's where you can contact me if you have questions or anything like that after class. It's the email you can reach me at is program.db@kadampa-center.org. And then lastly, the completion card. If you're working for a certificate, whether it's for the Kadampa Center or for FPMT, you can keep track of all of your work here, and that's what you can send to me at the end of the class, and I will send on to Heyman. So you can keep up with everything here. Lastly, I promise this is it. The giving part is down here at the end. Kadampa Center does all things free. Yay! And so if you are able and willing to give any kind of donation to the Kadampa Center, there's multiple ways to give. 4 of which are listed here. So be sure to take a look at that, and we would love anything that you are able to share. And of course, as you share, that builds positive merit and generosity. All right, I am going to stop screen sharing and now get this turned back over to Hemant. All right, and again, if you do have questions for me, just type those in the chat box. All right, Hemant, I'm going to turn it over to you now and let you take it away.
Well, thank you, Linda. Thank you so much for all that introduction. I couldn't have done it. So thank you for that. So before we start the class, I would like to do 3 prostrations. Obviously, you're not in Kadampa Center, so we will do a mental prostrations. Those that want to do the real ones, that's fine. I think it's traditional, and what we are really doing by doing prostrations, for those people who have never done them or have questions, this is really about respecting the teachings. You're not bowing down to anyone. You are respecting the teachings, and in our Buddhism, we have the triple gem, which is the Buddha, Dharma, and the Sangha members. It also is good for humbling oneself. And also it develops good qualities and admiration and kind of preps you for the class. So it's all good. And for those that need to lose a little stomach weight like I do, it's a wonderful practice anyways. So I would ask that you, in your mind, so the way we do it in the mind, and you can imagine it's on the top of the head, then forehead, towards the throat and heart, body, speech, and mind, okay? And you're just basically saying that I am learning, thank you for the teachings, and just prepare your mind for with those good qualities. And while you're doing it, think of all your loved family members, pets, and then extend it out to the community, and as far as you can go. And those people in suffering right now with COVID, every one of them you can take in your mind standing next to you, and they're doing these prostrations along with you. That's the visualization you can have. So let's just do that. Just take about 30 seconds or so and just do 3 prostrations mentally, okay? And for those that have never done prostrations, in our Kadampa Center, we say Om Namo Manju Shriye, Namo Sushiye, Namo Tama Shriye, for the class purposes. For those who know, that's fine. For those that don't know, don't worry. You simply show humbleness towards the teaching that you're going to be receiving. So thank you for that. Also, according to our teachings, when you start a class, we should acknowledge some teachers and lineage. And I like to do that before starting any class I do. So all the way to Buddha, then Lama Tisha, Lama Tsongkhapa, His Holiness Dalai Lama, Lama Yeshe, Lama Zopa Rinpoche, our Geshe Gelek, our FPMT teachers, also Geshe Sangpo. And then I like to also acknowledge all the authors that I have taken the privilege of learning from. Thupten Pende is the one who has put this syllabus together. And then obviously all the venerable nuns, the DB teachers, the senior students, and people like Linda who support this program. It's a wonderful program, 13 module, I believe, and that it's all free of charge. And it's a lot of information. It's a great way to learn and discover what is Buddhism all about. So with that, I thank you. So the next thing we have is a 26-minute video. So that's gonna take a chunk of our time today. But however, I find that this video hosted by Richard Gere is a perfect introduction to the class of emptiness. So with that, I will let Linda load up the video, and then after video, we'll really start to talk about what we need to do and what's the next in the agenda.
Great. Thank you, Hamid. Y'all bear with me for just a second while I get that pulled up. Let's see if it starts. Hang on. I feel like it's loading on my computer. There we go. Okay.
Most of the time, life appears to us to be completely solid and permanent. We believe this fixed view of our bodies and our thoughts and the projections of our lives and the world around us. Believe it's all true. According to Buddhism, this habit of misapprehending everything we experience is the root of all of our problems. In particular, when we think that I am real, solid, and unchanging, we put all of our energy into defending the happiness of this I at the cost of everything and everyone else. The Buddha realized this is the greatest ignorance we suffer from, and with his earth-shaking teachings on emptiness, he said, wait a minute, the world isn't as concrete as you think. Why don't you analyze what you call reality very, very carefully and check to see if it really exists the way you think? The truth is, nothing exists that it appears. And by realizing this, you'll create a happier situation for yourself and for others. This wisdom that realizes emptiness is extraordinary, and it has the power to free us at any moment.
The Buddha's wisdom teachings on emptiness are complex and difficult teachings, not easy to understand. It's particularly important that one prepares the mind before listening to these teachings with an appropriate motivation that opens the mind to being able to understand and absorb them. This is similar to tilling the soil of a garden in order to be able to plant the seeds of enlightenment. Therefore, now, in your mind, make a strong determination, generate a strong motivation to be able to traverse the spiritual path, to understand the Buddha's teachings on emptiness, in order to free yourself from the bonds of samsara and to reach enlightenment, in order to be able to also free all suffering living beings.
this very important point, you see, to release our, say, confused mind or the confusion, to cut our hallucination, this, the biggest suffering in our life, which continuation, this hallucination we had from beginning this is samsara rebirth, this hallucination, you see, the truly existence appearance, you see, that which is apprehended by the root of samsara, which is apprehended by the ignorance, the king of the delusion. See, the ignorance, the mind not knowing the ultimate nature of the phenomena, such as the mind not knowing ultimate nature of the I, which is the root of samsara. So therefore, this is a very essential point to essential point to know what is the false or the truth in your life. So in order to realize in this, first you have to recognize objectively repeated the false I, which is you have to recognize the false I, which is false. Which root the ignorance, not knowing what is I. Even though we think I 24 hours, we talk always I. Like chanting Om Mani Padme Hum, we think I 24 hours. We say we think I, but do not know what is I. We fight for the I. We fight for this I. We kill other people. We kill even for this I. Even we have to kill people, other people, other sentient beings. Create so many, give so many harms. Killing, stealing, social conduct, telling lies, so many harms to give so many harm to others for this I, for to protect this I, for the happiness of this I, to give happiness to this I. But we do not know, but no idea what is I. See, no knowledge of what is I. This false I is the inherently existing I that which appear to you, even though it's merely labeled, but appear you not merely labeled. So this is there, this appearance there, from beginning is rebirth up to now, but you never recognized that that is false.
I suppose the ultimate analysis to overcome attachment is to analyze the nature of I. And also, when we analyze the nature of self, or the persons we are attached to, like I mentioned before, we can't pinpoint the real person there that we are attached to. So we end up with a sense of emptiness, and not the ordinary emptiness like an empty room, but just the emptiness of not being able to find that object of attachment. But that doesn't exist there in that person the way we perceive it. So when you experience the emptiness again, mind becomes very happy and relaxed. And the same when we analyze ourselves, if we are in a state of attachment and greed for something, then one can analyze, where is this greedy me? Where does this greedy me exist? How does it exist? So then you try to look. Is it my body? Is it my mind? you try to investigate, where is this greedy me? Is it oneness with my mind? Am I greed? Am I in the nature of greed? Can't be, isn't it? Because then you would have to be greedy all the time. So I'm not my greed. My greed is just a moment, state of my mind. Okay? So who is greedy? You know, when you research inside, you can't pinpoint this independent self that is sitting there somewhere being greedy. It's completely not there. Again, emptiness, you know, space. Makes you feel happy. Suddenly, greed is gone because there's nobody there being greedy. And you know, the emptiness is the ultimate method to eliminate negative states of mind, because they are based on a false view, you know. When you research the correct view of the self, negativity goes, definitely goes. It has no foundation. It drops down, and wisdom comes. You know, with wisdom, these negative states of mind doesn't have a chance. And with wisdom, you feel satisfied. It satisfies you, it makes you content. You feel good inside, you know. That's the ultimate solution to attachment and to, you know, negative states of mind. And this all have to be learned in meditation. So it's all part of meditation practice. But don't think that there are no methods to overcome negativities. In Buddhism, plenty of methods. It's just a matter of we need to practice it, you know.
According to Buddhism in general, you have the conventional mode of how things exist, which is the Davidness of David and the carpetness of carpet and the cupness of cups and like that. They're all got their own distinct conventional mode of existing, and they're all kind of in that, within that context, exist, conventionally speaking. Then you have the ultimate or final mode of existence of things, okay? And that's, if you like, the same for everything. So ultimately, Buddha would say, you cannot find inherent, self-existent glassesness. Glasses are empty of being inherent, findable, real, in and of themselves glassesness, which is how we grasp at everything, Buddha would say, due to this fundamental ignorance in our mind. It is empty of that. And empty in the sense simply means lacking that type of existence. But the ignorance within our mind, Buddha is saying, which is completely pervasive, absolutely clings to that, believes it, sees it 1,000,000,000% unceasingly. And it's a total, big, fat, rotten lie. And it's the mother of all lies, the cause of all suffering, the cause of universes, finally, the cause of everything. Okay, Buddha says it is empty of all of this. Ultimately, you cannot find glasses. Ultimately, there is no glasses from its own side. There's no David from its own side. There's no carpet from its own side. There's no kaka from its own side. The emptiness of everything, the emptiness of kaka and the emptiness of you is the same. All are empty or lack an ultimate reality, a final reality, a findable inherentness. Conventionally, nevertheless, we indeed can point to glasses, not a problem. There are glasses there, and it would be very stupid to call it a cup. You'd be in trouble. Coffee would burn you. So the thing is, right now, there's this huge contradiction when we hear about, oh, there are glasses. Grasp. No, sorry, there are no glasses. Oh my God, chuck them out with the bathwater. We go too far. We have these two extreme ways of seeing. So we either cling to everything as having an inherent eternalistic nature. Now, interestingly, philosophically speaking, Buddhism would say that Christianity and Hinduism and Islam have this view. Just talking philosophically, not being sectarian here. Okay? Have the view of real, solid, self-existent something, real, solid, self-existent out there God, real, solid, self-existent soul. Buddhism would assert that it's not possible to be this. Buddhism would argue with the Christian and say, you've got the wrong end of the stick. Yes, there's God, but it's interdependent. Everyone can become it, like I was saying before. It's just a philosophical discussion. And that the view we have of self-existent God out there and soul and absolute and permanent and inherent is a product of this fundamental ignorance that posits that, therefore doesn't see this. So these two extreme views we have, either the nihilistic one, chuck the baby out with the bathwater, or, grasp, And these are the instinctive ways that our mind thinks now. So what Buddha says is there's this view that ultimately there is no glasses, but the more you understand how there is glasses conventionally in its appropriate way, the more you get that it's empty. And the more you realise how there is no glasses from its own side, the more it helps you understand conventional. Okay, the shorthand for conventional reality is dependent arising. That means it's a dependent arising. It arose in dependence upon causes and conditions. Now, karma is causes and conditions for me. Right now, because of ignorance in my mind, I cling to and believe in a self-existent, real, solid, out here, schizophrenic, separate, made by somebody else, hopeless victim me-ness, which gives rise to attachment and anger and pride and jealousy and all the suffering, right? All coming from this fundamental ignorance, this fundamental misconception that is the exact opposite of the truth, that I'm a completely interdependent scenario. So because everything is empty, there can be even karma. Therefore, there is no real glasses. Therefore, there is no real Rabina, self-existent, solid, poor victim, mean, nasty, horrible David. They are the creations of ignorance.
The way suffering ends is it ends through insight. And it's the insight that comprehends exactly how it is that the self actually exists. It's the insight that shows us, that tells us directly that this self is impermanent, exists in dependence on other things, not independently and all in its own right. And so with that, having gained insight about how we ourselves exist, we can put a complete end, we can burst asunder the ignorance that was the root cause of samsara. Therefore, gaining wisdom is equivalent with gaining enlightenment. The wisdom that realizes the actual nature of how things exist is a wisdom realizing this famous principle in Buddhism, shunyata, variously translated in English, emptiness, voidness. And some people say, well, seems like a despairing kind of religion, pessimistic, there's nothing, nihilistic, there's nothing, But in fact, shunyata is the emptiness, voidness of what? Buddhists go on, they go on. You have to find out of what something is empty. And then there's nothing mysterious at all. There's nothing mysterious about it. I am, you are, every single thing, all selves and all things in existence are empty of an independent existence. That's all. Therefore, it's simple, you see. Therefore, things are not independent. Therefore, things are dependent and interconnected. All things are connected, So the wisdom that comes to see selflessness or emptiness or voidness immediately experiences, and so we can feel these things it's direct and unmediated knowledge, immediately feels our connection with all things. So why would I think about harming that other person? He's me, you know? Why would I think about chopping down that tree? It's me, you know? So it's in our relationship with all other things, you know? And this is, compassion springs from this. There's no way to hold it back.
On a conceptual level, I think it's really important to explore the nature of emptiness from a logical point of view. That it's impossible that we exist in our own separate islands and that we exist from our own side totally. We are dependent arisings. Everything about us is dependent on a previous moment and dependent on causes and conditions. And that's the same with everything supposedly out there is also not there from its own side. It's not powered from purely its own side. It has no concrete longevity to it. We're all in process. We all have a prior cause. We're all in movement, moving to a new effect, which is the cause of the next effect. There's nothing concrete about any of this. And the appearance of concreteness is ignorance. That's the thing we're fighting. Now, the essential antidote to that is to at least have a strong belief in emptiness. That things are empty of inherent existence. They're empty of that solidity. There's empty of a me-ness, of a you-ness, of an I-ness. And when you take that, as His Holiness says, you take the mantra of me, I, out of the mental sphere, it has an incredible transformative effect. Also, you start to understand the interconnectedness of all things. Even on the simplest level, there's nothing that we see around us that we did totally ourselves. Now, being able to detach a little bit, having some experience of emptiness, even if it's imaginative, you can detach from that kind of identification with emotion and with mindsets that create a kind of static solidity to all events and situations. So clearly, as an actor, I got to be able to do that all the time, moving in and out of seemingly operatic, emotional, and conceptual situations, and try to maintain a sense of cleanliness about it all. That it is, in the end, just a narrative. It's just a story. And the story comes and it goes. But that space that it emerges from remains. That is solid. And that's that space of openness and clarity, of knowing. It is uncontained, has no center, has no boundaries. So again, the more that you're able to see this kind of dreamlike, illusory nature of this narrative that kind of emerges and intoxicates us in these kind of mysterious, magical ways, if you can see that for what it is, at the same time generating a stability in this other space, which is much more expansive and certainly loving, life's problems tend to fall away.
I think it helps me get less emotional about things. Not dull or indifferent, but just less attached to my feelings towards something, because how I'm seeing it is only according to my karma. And if I like it, then I can be happy with my karma. If I don't like it, I can be unhappy with my karma, but having the emptiness is like, I think that's a real refuge. That's the liberating part. Knowing that what I see, if it's horrible and terrible, I'm having a bad time, it's okay. It's just what I'm experiencing right now. Nothing to do with reality. Nothing to do with something that is there. If I really take refuge, I think it's really taking refuge in the emptiness of myself, of everyone, and of the things I see.
Wow, that was a wonderful video. Great introduction. So let me share my screen now. So let's try. Okay. Good. Yes, I'm hoping you guys can see my screen, the title page.
Yes, I can see it at least. Hopefully everyone else can.
Great. All right, guys. I'll tell you right off the bat, the video was a little longer than I expected, but so we probably will cover whatever I need to next time, but we'll at least get to some of the contents this session. So the next thing we want to do is, you saw the video. So this was the plan I had initially planned for, and I thought I would probably need an hour, but it looks like we have about 45 minutes. So there will be few things that I will cover next time. I promise you that we'll cover everything. So what we're going to start with now is the meditation, and followed by motivation. For every class, for everything we do, there has to be an intention so that we can act upon it in our own lives. So for at this moment, we'll begin with a brief meditation and set our motivation to explore the teachings of emptiness. So bring your attention to the present moment. I know some of you had some work, some of you had a busy day, and some of you are thinking about tomorrow. But for this class and for purposes of this meditation, just be in the present moment. So we'll begin by getting in a proper sitting position for meditation. It's called the 7-point meditation posture. Okay. And basically, you want to keep your back straight. For those seated on the cushion, your legs should be crossed in a lotus position, or cushion or a floor, or a vajra position, so cross legs. And for those sitting in a chair or a sofa, your feet should be flat on the floor. Your arms are held loosely on your lap, and your hands resting about 2 or 3 inches below your navel. And what you do is you kind of create this teardrop. Your right hand is on top of your left hand, and a teardrop 2 or 3 inches below your navel. Just resting on your legs there. Your head is slightly inclined forward, and the gaze is on the floor. You're gazing on the floor in front of you. Your jaw and mouth are relaxed, teeth slightly apart, lips lightly touching. Your tongue rests lightly on the upper palate. Tip touches the back of your upper teeth. And your eyes shut in the beginning, but learn to leave it slightly open. So with that posture, relax and just scan your body and release any tension you may be holding. As you breathe in and out, you may focus on either the cool tingling on your nostrils as you breathe, or focus on your abdomen going in and out as you inhale and exhale. Either one, not both. And slowly bring your attention to your breath. And continue to keep your mind focused on the breath as you inhale and exhale. If your mind starts to wander, gently bring it back to your breath. So while in this state of calmness, we'll do our motivation or set the intention. For a moment, collect your thoughts. This is an opportunity to transform our minds by listening to the most profound subject that Buddha taught. It's the mean by which a person can achieve liberation, supreme enlightenment. Regardless of how profound the subject matter is, how blessed the setting is, how capable or incapable the teacher is, whether or not we actually advance ourselves on the path to liberation and enlightenment depends principally on the motivation behind the action. Listening is the initial step of our spiritual development, no matter what form it takes. Either listening, reading, discussion, or watching His Holiness's DVD. As we embark on this voyage into the nature of reality, we need many different skills. We need to be selective in our reading and listening. Need to be sifting out of authentic texts. In other words, we need to have a little discrimination, not reading all kind of material, but kind of keeping certain ones, the lineage teachings, as your primary source of reading. You need to be perseverant. To get the actual meaning, we have to study them. Listen to the teachings from qualified teachers again and again. And then listening without assimilating what we are listening to is useless. So the second step is contemplating. I want this to sink in. The second step is contemplating. And this is my own opinion. A lot of times people come to the class for intellectual purposes. But if this has to have some meaning in your life, if you're truly trying to transform yourself, you need to really learn, read again and again, and contemplate. Think about these words, what teachers are saying, what His Holiness is saying, what the lineage teachers are teaching. So contemplating means absorbing more deeply whatever we have heard into our hearts. For instance, hearing that ignorance is the root of samsara will not get us closer to the freedom from suffering unless we apply that knowledge and understand what it means. The key is to know that contemplation means to investigate what we have heard, to come to know as much as we can about it and understand it deeply. The third piece is the meditation. Only then we are ready to start to meditate on it, which is the third of the 3 steps of understanding. So therefore, bring your attention to your ultimate objective, which is to achieve supreme enlightenment and benefit each and every living being. We have found this unique opportunity, met with the teachings of the Buddha, the perfect and complete path. So take advantage of it, so that we become a perfect cause for happiness for all living beings. This is hard to resist. So try to generate the state of mind, engage this effort to achieve that supreme state. Imagine that all living beings throughout this universe are in anticipation at this moment. And by the effort we generate now, they are going to get closer to their liberation. Thank you. Okay, I think the video did a great job of introducing. However, I have these 2 books here, not for your reading purposes, but I want to give credit. As I was doing my own search and research and reading a while ago, I found the introductions in these 2 books pretty helpful to me. And I wanted to try something a little different this time. Usually we start very slowly and build up to it, but sometimes it's nice to lay the topic out, just like Venerable Robina did. She said, it's conventional, and here's the ultimate truth, and we check it out of the door, right? She starts a little hard, but then we unpack it. Because I think most people will at least understand the basic concept intellectually. And what we need to do is then slowly unpack this material. So this is the introduction from a different angle that I wanted to take. And I'll just tell you that because of the timing, we may not be able to complete everything that I had on my agenda for the day, but we'll catch up. And after this little introduction, we'll get a little bit of history and a background of the subject matter of emptiness. So what I wanted to start with is that the first book you see, the Introduction to Emptiness by Guy Newland, he has a summary right in the beginning. He says, we falsely believe that we exist in a solid, independent way. So let's slow down on that. Everybody says these things, but we gotta assimilate that. We think that we believe that we exist in a solid, independent way. And you can understand that, right? We say, I am Hemant, that's Linda. This is, I mean, we put this concreteness to it, okay? But if you think about death, it tells you a different story, that we are impermanent. Let's take a look at an example. When you were at birth, then at your infancy, then at your childhood, then you become a teen, then you are an adult. At some point we will age and die. You can see that we are not the same as we were 10, 15, or 20 years ago. We change. Now, take that view and look at everything. Look at the roads, the structures, the society, the continents, anything you want to see. Look at the changes in the weather. Nothing stays the same. Everything is impermanent. So when you see this, that I am impermanent, I am dependent origination, it throws people off because we are so habituated thinking of our name and me and our needs, right? And so our mind doesn't even understand the word emptiness. It usually means the glass is empty of water or tea or coffee. That's how we think. This concept is a little bigger than that. So I just wanted to let you know that at least focus on the fact that this is a great introduction, and beneath all of this ever-changing minds and impermanence, there is no eternal existing self. And we'll talk about this as we move along in the classes. This is where people get confused. Well, if I don't exist, then what the heck exists, right? So these kind of thoughts will come up perfectly fine. Let those thoughts come, and we need to unpack it. And I can tell you that just one session is not going to solve your questions. But as I mentioned, pay attention to the word contemplate on it. And we'll talk about that a little more. And as we move along, some of these things will start to make sense, or you may get glimpses of it, okay? So we can say that we exist, but only in dependence of our body parts. We can say that. We also depend on water and food, other members of the society and ancestors, and even the Geshe-la says, think about where the electricity comes from, where the food comes from, how many things are involved in getting that food on your table. Anywhere from the seed, the fruit, to the farmer, to the guy who plucks the apple maybe, and brings it to the truck, who washes it all the way to the store, all of those things. The entire, our existence is filled with interactions and interdependence, right? I give example to a lot of my friends about a simple thing like tree, right? You look at the tree, okay, you name it, we call it a pine tree. So we think it's a pine tree, but if you really look at the nature of any tree, it gets minerals, water, it comes from a seed, the seed comes from a fruit, the fruit comes from another tree, and it needs causes and conditions for it to flourish and become another tree, and then it creates many more fruits, and it goes on and on and on. That, like the lady in the end and in the video said, we are all connected. We are all connected. Think about it for a while. So existence is only possible because things are less rigid. If you were permanent, you were the way you think you are, I am here, then things would be frozen, rigid. The only reason you're able to learn, look for happiness, is because things are changing, because things are moving and your mind is moving. If you freeze it, then there is no other change. Everything is frozen. So it can't be solid, eternal essence. You have to have changes. That is the nature of this, okay? And the next thing, so the ultimate truth is that it's a sheer absence or lack of such existence. So what happens is, as I was saying, people get into this mode, then if there is nothing, then what matters? It's useless, nothing matters. This is like a despair. But it's the other way around. If things were frozen, you would not grow. You would not get to enlightenment, probably not even get to the next, your job if you were frozen, or go to the grocery store, right? So think in those terms. So we need the impermanence in the way nature is. That's what allows us to do. And how lucky we are that we have the ability in the human birth to be able to do something about it. So it's actually very positive. You see, all the way from I am me, and this is the way it is, to now open your world up, that we are connected, things are interconnected, we are interdependent, and because of that, I have an opportunity to do something positive and change the course of action. Take the journey to the next level and great opportunity. And that's why in Buddhism, we start with what? Precious human rebirth, an opportunity. So understanding of how things exist, how the reality is the topic of this session, the emptiness. And the second book, The Relative Truth and Ultimate Truth, I only bring that up shortly, is because this is another way to look at it. And Venerable Rabina touched on it a little bit. If you think about it, the relative truth is everything we do right now. We feel the pain, I feel hungry, I take a shower, you take a shower, we all do these things. Those are relative truths. Things do happen. However, when you go deep, and it's fun, it's interesting how this relative truth, or it's also called conventional truth, right? These things and how it is intertwined with the ultimate truth, much deeper, where everything is not, it's not a diverse, it's just one taste. Beautiful, it opens it up, and we kind of interweave in and out of it. So it's wonderful to finally understand what is the deep down ultimate truth and how we function with our conventional reality. I do have a job, we have a family, we have a home, we have to pay rent, right? So those are relative truths, but what happens is how we latch onto that as real, and we forget what the real truth is underneath it. So we are going to talk about those topics, okay? So even if you get a glimpse of this, a little bit sense of that right now, it's a big help, believe me, because it's a complex subject because we are so habituated with a certain way of thinking. And so it takes a little while before it starts to settle in your mind. So we are trying to gain the wisdom that will overcome the root of our suffering, and which requires the mind to explore the ultimate nature of things and events, right? And only by seeing the reality of our situation, we will be able to then improve its true, meaningful way, right? So with that, okay, we'll give you a quick, short background on the how this course came about. It's important for everybody who's on the meeting today to know that these teachings are authentic. Hemant is not making this up. There are things I will say, and I'll say, this is what I want to say, but to make it a conceptually easy to understand, you have to paraphrase few things. But I want you to know the syllabus, the teachings are very authentic, and especially this particular module 12 of Wisdom of Emptiness, was developed in 2001 by FPMT teachers, and they met in Italy in the Institute of Lama Tsongkhapa, and Thupten Pende, and I have a little biography of him. He is also known as James Dougherty, has been leading meditation retreats and teaching Dharma internationally since 1975, as directed by Lama Yeshe, and has become one of the senior most Western teachers of the FPMT. So he put this together and was then sanctioned to have this program for DB. And the good thing is that presentations are based on Lama Tsongkhapa's main disciples and treatises, and by the great Indian Pandits of the Indian tradition. And then several Western scholars also learned to read Tibetan so that they could translate some of these terms. And now we can get a good understanding and appreciation of this concept. So the goal of this program is to provide an integrated program of study and practice at an introductory level. And I like to say that once you get a glimpse of it, you must move forward to some advanced level. But it's very important for you get to really dive and understand the fundamentals of this. And that's the attempt we will do. So there is some historical background, where it comes from, how it came about, why Buddha taught it. Those are all important factors. But once you get it and you contemplate and meditate and you start to see it, you need to take it to the next level, okay? So let's talk about Shakyamuni Buddha is noted for teaching emptiness, but like I think one of the persons in the video said, the word emptiness is known by many different words, right? You hear the word selflessness, then you hear the word egolessness, then you hear the word identitylessness or emptiness, depending on the translators. And then you have the Tibetan words. In Tibetan, it's called Tongpa. Then in Sanskrit, it's called Sunyata. And then you can also have Vietnamese and Chinese and so forth. But just know, in the essence, is the same, okay? So the idea of this program was not to use a lot of jargon. However, there is a risk in doing that because the concept itself, depending on the term, at some point, you should become familiar with some of the terms to really learn the subject matter. Because a lot of the teachings in the advanced levels is pretty technical, okay? So it's good to get few of the words at least familiarized, okay? I will again tell you very honestly, I go to Lama Yeshe archives, which is lamayeshe.com/glossary. It's on my favorite. Most of my questions and vocabulary and definitions I derive from there. If I find it difficult, then I go to like Burzen Archives or Thupten Children's website. Between those three, I just about find everything I need to find. So be familiar with that. Also be familiar with some names, just for knowledge's sake. When you start reading about emptiness, you will hear words of the Indian Pandits who we are taking a lot of this from. There were already a lot of existing schools that talked here and there about emptiness, and some very, very nicely, but then we have a lineage that really finessed it, made it a real logical argument to say this is the way it is, and we follow Nagarjuna's teachings. And we'll talk about that in a separate session at some point. But be familiar with that name, Nagarjuna. He was a scholar. You will also hear the commentaries of Chandra Kriti. Right now, don't worry about it. I will repeat myself too. There are few names, they will come up. And so what happens is people start to read and they lose interest the minute they hear another foreign word. It's not a John, it's not a David, and they see Chandra Kriti and Nagarjuna and they say, oh, what is all this stuff, right? So don't get discouraged. These were excellent lineage teachers from which this subject has come. Finally, Lama Tsongkhapa put it in the stages to the path of enlightenment. And our lineage teachings come from there, and then our teachers and FPMT and Lama Yashe and all the way down. And Geshe-la teaches this in so many beautiful ways. So just know how authentic these teachings are, okay? So historical background, I'm going to give you a little bit of background and we'll keep a little eyesight on the timing. So you know Buddha taught for at least over 40 years, according to, and what he taught according to the mindset of the person or the group he was addressing. You know, different mentality, different interests, some people in vast group of people, family members, individuals. So he taught depending on what that mindset of that person was, or the capacity of that listener was, okay? And then all of his teachings were categorized by his followers. And you can call it the 84,000 bundles of teachings. Then they were organized further in conveniently 3 baskets. The first basket is the teaching of discipline. And for knowledge's sake, in the original text called Vinaya. So when you hear Geshe-la talk about discipline or Vinaya teachings, they're talking about how the precepts and how the monks follow those, that kind of discipline. The second basket was the discourses. We call it Sutra, S-U-T-R-A, right in here, the Heart Sutra, the Diamond Cutter Sutra. So those are discourses. And the third basket was the basket of knowledge. So this is how things were organized. And then further, it was even further subdivided more broadly into the Mahayana tradition vehicle teachings and the Hinayana, okay, or sometimes called the universal vehicle and the individual vehicle. And just to give you a little background, the teachings of the universal vehicle are those teachings that were directed to those disciples who are of the family of great compassion. So when we are Mahayanist, right, Vajrayana, Mahayana, and so you always talk about bodhicitta, right? Compassion, being kind. So that's the family. That is those beings whose motivation is for developing and cultivating their potential on the spiritual path are motivated by compassion. Thus, they are trying to become an instrument or cause for happiness of other living beings or sentient beings. And the only way they will perfectly be able to actualize this is that the aspiration is through the achievement of supreme enlightenment so that they could benefit others. So Buddha created a track for them. Then you also had the Hinayana or the individual vehicle. Now this individual vehicle people are, or practitioners, I should say, are motivated principally by the desire to escape themselves from this vicious cycle of uncontrolled death and rebirth, just individually. That doesn't mean we don't learn this. This is not us and them. Please do know that this is all combined. It is just how it is in terms of how Theravada or Hinayana is focused on an individual, whereas we want to become enlightened so we can continue to help all sentient beings. It's just the way of thinking. That doesn't mean they don't have compassion, and that does not mean we don't need to get out of this chatter mind ourselves. So just know it's interconnected, but just different ways of looking at things. Okay, so their main aim is to experience happiness and liberation and away from this vicious cycle. Just kind of get this out and become liberated. Okay, so he developed teachings according to them. So you can even take it further, that in these individual teachings, you find this great enlightenment sutra or discourse, okay, which describes Buddha's achievement of enlightenment under Bodhi tree, a description of a realization how beings are bound by cyclic existence. Where am I going with this? So let me just see if I need to move further. Oh, I have already moved a little further. Where am I going with this? You will find at the end of this, it is very much connected to the topic of emptiness. Okay, it is important for you to understand how things have come about. And so then you will understand that this was not somebody sat in a basement and made this up. Okay, so it's very important. So in this Enlightenment Sutra under the Bodhi tree, when he was awakened, Buddha was awakened, he realized something. And he says he saw how people are bound in this cyclic existence. The word we use is samsara. This is the same thing, birth and death, birth, aging, death, this cycle. We take birth again and again and again. We are born, we go through this growth, teenage, and die, right? So that's what they're talking about, samsara. And when you're in samsara, all the other packages come with it, right? The suffering, the temporary good times, the happinesses, but ultimately sickness and death follows. So what he realized was that through ignorance, we engage in actions. Okay, so think about this, through ignorance, not knowing the reality, we engage in actions. From actions, consciousness arises. From consciousness, name and form arise. And then depending upon the name and form, the senses arise. And then depending upon senses, the contact of the objects arises. And depending on the contact, feeling arises. I like it, I don't like it. This is good, this is tasty, right? And then depending upon the feeling, then the craving of desire arises. Okay, and after that, we have grasping arises. And then we feel solid about I am. I like it, I don't like it. This is mine, this is yours. We start that. Okay, and that's called becoming. And this causes the birth, and then aging and death. And so we die with grasping and clinging, and you then are taken with your subtle mind into the next rebirth, and guess what? Back in the cycle. And does not guarantee always a human birth. It is not Hemant moving on to the new birth. It is your seed that culminates into whatever, depending on your seed. So the starting point was what? Ignorance, not knowing the reality, not knowing how things exist. And because we don't know, we go through this 12 points, and it is well known by 12 points of dependent origination. This is what it is called. Okay, so then we'll cover this in the next class also. I'll go through this again. Okay, and so then you know what the good thing about it is. The sutra also says you can have cessation of the ignorance, and it goes backwards basically. So once you understand the ignorance, there's a cessation of the action from the ignorance, and from cessation, the ignorant actions, there's a cessation of consciousness arising, and so forth, all the way to no more aging and no more death, freedom. So if something arises, it also has cessation. And so the key point here is what? Ignorance, the fundamental confusion, as Geshe-la would say, of self-inherent existence. And we will cover more of it, of course. So we see that the whole cyclic existence with all the suffering is a result of uncontrolled, ignorant actions, as well as clinging and grasping that occurs during the time of death, as I mentioned. So the only way that we can end this ignorance, that is the root of all, the only way we can end this is through wisdom. Okay, the wisdom is basically a mental event that is able to discern what is and what isn't. Okay? And so here, when we're talking about discrimination, is we are particularly talking about the way things exist, by means of which we may identify and eliminate all the false appearances that obscure our actual existence. So you can just at least for a second think that all these problems that we get into is because we don't understand that. So you saw those 12 points: the consciousness, the action, then the desire, the feeling, then all of these things start. It creates this feeling that I am this way. I like this. I really love this. I don't like that. We create that. And there's nothing wrong in liking or not liking. But now you can't live without it. You can't let it go. And now when the time comes when you have to depart this beautiful world of ours, then what happens? You have fear. And when you have fear, you cling on to what you're familiar with. And then what happens? Your subtle mind goes exactly where it was the last few thoughts that you created, went to all the seeds. So this is why understanding emptiness is absolutely important and very positive, because it liberates you. Okay, it really is a freedom. All right. So with that, let's go to, I know that we are getting close to the time, so we'll go as far as I can go, and then we'll catch up. So I want you to know that these are the course reading requirements that Linda talked about in the beginning of the class, and she also showed you where you can find it. I would like you, at least for the homework, this is the shortest homework I've ever given, I would like you to read The Wisdom of Emptiness, one page. That's one page, front and back. Second one I want you to read before the next class, Seeking the I by Lama Zopa Rinpoche. Again, 2 pages and a quarter, not more. And then the third thing is the 2 truths. We talked about conventional truth and ultimate truth. These will bring you up to date with what we are covering right now. And in a very beautiful way, there are examples, very nicely, really nicely written, and it will give you different angles of how to see things. And you will start to get a glimpse of what this is all about. So these 3 things, you're talking about maybe 6 pages, 6.5 pages or 7 pages at the max, should not take you long. But I would also suggest to you, first time, go through it like you would read anything. Then I would pause and go through it again and highlight the words you don't understand. I want you to contemplate on what we've been talking about and how it relates to what the readings are. I'm telling you, you will find it very entertaining for your mind. And it's not only that, it's very helpful. Okay, so again, number 1, The Wisdom of Emptiness. Then number 2, Seeking the I, and the 2 truths. Okay.
Hemant, do you have time for a question?
Sure.
So one student wrote in, can we get the process repeated again so we can contemplate? And then she's written, ignorance goes to action, goes to question mark, and then that goes to the false I arises.
Right. So what is the question? Does this repeat again? Is the question?
It says, can we get the process repeated again?
Well, yeah, sure.
So we can
And I will go through it. If you mean here, certainly I can talk about it, and I can also present it once.
Oh, she's asking what's in between. So she has ignorance to action, and then question mark,
sure.
and then the false I arises.
Sure. So I will definitely go through in details in the next class. However,
Okay.
let's just go through them one more time, at least for right now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So through ignorance, we engage in actions. Okay. Through ignorance, we're not knowing we have actions. From actions, consciousness arises. From consciousness, name and form arise. Then by depending upon name and form, the senses arise. So once we depend on the senses, then there is a contact, taste, eyesight, hearing, all of those things with the sense objects. By depending upon contact, feeling arises. By depending upon the feeling, there is a craving and desire. And by depending upon craving and desire, grasping for existence arises. From grasping, becoming someone, this solid, independent I thing arises. After which it goes into, obviously this is a cycle, then you are born again, and then again the aging and the death goes, and this cycle kind of continues that way. But there is a cessation. So if you understand the ignorant, then the actions are diminished, then all these steps that we just went through can have cessation. Therefore, you liberate from death and aging, birth and death cycle from samsara. That's what it's talking about. And we'll cover that a little bit more probably in the next class or two. I will cover it. I know that I have something already listed for the dependent origination. It's called the 12 links. And there are books on it, and it gets much deeper because each one of them have connections with each other. But just for purposes of understanding, that is the process that was described when I was reading. I hope that answers at least question for right now.
I think so. Thank you.
Okay. Then we have optional reading books. And of course, the Kadampa Center is not open. If you have, that's wonderful. If you don't have, I would not worry about it. I would emphasize at least read the reading materials that you have the links to. But if you have this book, at least at minimum, Liberation in Palm of Your Hand by Prabhupada Rinpoche is very important. Okay. And then of course, we will get into Heart Sutra next teaching. So this is a wonderful thing. And we'll actually do the teachings of the Heart Sutra. And I only have 5 or 7 minutes left. So what I will just do is go through the definitions. We'll do the dedication once the 8:30 time comes up, and then we'll catch up on the required meditation and some further teachings in the next class. I think that gives everybody the right time. I don't want to take people into late night and all that. So anyways, I think before Heart Sutra, one should at least become familiar with the words, the aggregates. We will talk about what is aggregate. Aggregate is what a human being basically is. And it is form, a material image or impression, feelings and sensation, received from the form. We have perception and discrimination, right? We kind of say up and down, but fat, skinny, good, bad, ugly, that kind of stuff. Compositional factors is another bucket that everything that your mind chatters about, story we create out of nowhere. If I do this, and if I'm late, and if I tell somebody ask me this, I will tell them that. We make up stories. All of those things are combined in the compositional factor, mental activities or formations, and finally the consciousness. And you will find that when we learn and go through Heart Sutra, it says none of these are inherently existent. These are empty of inherent existence. And so I will leave it at right now. We'll talk about it. We already talked about the 3 baskets, how the teachings of the Buddhas were organized. I wrote it down: basket of discipline, basket of discourse, basket of specific further doctrine or knowledge. All this morning we've been talking about, you heard the word ignorance, not seeing that which exists. Okay? And we can take it further when we define it into the way we are trying to understand emptiness. And at least know the word paramita. This is just a word. You will see that when you see the Heart Sutra, it's written prajna paramita. And so the prajna means wisdom, paramita means perfection, wisdom of perfection, the Heart Sutra. Okay, but it's good because when you read these things, you'll see these words and it's like, okay, let's move forward, but it's good to be familiar with it. All right. And we still have 5 minutes, so I'll just give you a quick introduction to what is this all about. The heart in the Heart Sutra is translated basically as the essence. of these teachings on emptiness. Heart means the essence. It is the most profound teaching of Buddha. Okay, and this was first put into 100,000 verses, then it was developed into 25,000 verses, and then 8,000 verses. These are called the three mothers, actually. But it was then condensed into Heart Sutra and ultimately into this one mantra. And when we say mantra, I want you to understand the word MAN of the mantra comes from the word manus, means mind. And TRA, tra, means protection. So the entire Heart Sutra and the mentioning of this mantra means protection for one's mind. Remember the 12 dependent origination. Once we get into feeling and desire and clinging, our mind is all over the place. But this is once you understand the concept of emptiness, the wisdom of emptiness, and you understand this mantra, you are focusing on how things are in true reality. And the mantra says, Tayatha gate gate, paragate parasamagate bodhi soha. And it is a powerful mantra. In short, the meaning Tayatha means like this or like that. Gate means gone. Gate gate means gone, gone. Paragate means gone beyond. And then parasamagate means gone to the further shore, other side, enlightenment. And bodhi means awakening. Soha, so be it. Okay, so very powerful mantra about emptiness. So any questions so far what we've covered? So next class, I will at least go through little history about Nagarjuna, little bit about Lama Tsongkhapa, okay, and the three aspects of the path in a very short nature, and then continue with our teachings for the next class, and also do a nicer, very good, nice meditation at the end. So what I will do at this point is I am going to go to my notes. And just very short, very short, two-liners. So I would just like to say that before we even one or two sentences in the dedication, please think about what we just talked about. Think about how the introductory video mentioned what Richard Gere said, what the students said, but most of all, what Lama Zopa Rinpoche said about how we are confused with this hallucination of I truly exist. Think about those words. Think about the introduction I went through about how things really are. Maybe a little contemplation on how things come into samsara through the 12 dependent origination, and that we are trying to gain this wisdom so that we can, instead of despair and nothing exists and not fall into nothingness, or nor we want to look at everything as a solid, that everything is impermanent and dependent arising causes and conditions, and how we can understand the true nature of reality. So we'll dedicate these efforts, your efforts, that you may soon realize your optimum potential and become a perfect guide to lead others to actualize their potential as well. So dedicate your efforts to become a perfect cause for the happiness of all living beings. And finally, I'll just like to say that let's see if I can, I think my slides are done, so no problem. I just want to thank you for the time today. And if you have any questions at this point, I am totally available.
Thank you, Hemant. I'm looking to see if there's any questions. I don't see any on YouTube.
Those people that are attending the class for the first time, if they have any questions or need to go back a little basic, because some of these words are a little bit on the dense side, I will be more than happy to walk you through it or give you some little background so you can catch up to the class. So please let me know, and I can have a conversation on Zoom if you want.
Great, thank you, Hemant.
Okay, so anyways, next session, I'll catch up on what we did not, and then we have a couple of things about 12 links, the Heart Sutra, misknowledge of reality, personal identity, and then a meditation on awareness during death.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Hemant.
Hi, thank you.
so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Heyman.
Thanks, Heyman.
Thank you, Sandra. Thank you, Alex.
Have a
Bye-bye.
good night.
Have a good night.
Good night, everyone. Thank you, Heyman.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye,
Thank you.
Linda.
very
Thank
much.
you.
Good
We'll
night.
see you guys
Thank
next
you.
week.
Alex.
Bye, bye, Helen. And thank you, Linda.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I just posted the link to Heart Sutra. Linda, if you can.
Yeah. I
Naga.
have it ready for next week, but thank you, Naga.
Thank you, Naga. All right, bye now.
Bye.
Great class, Dad.